And welcome in, everyone, to the First Call podcast. Every Friday, we move it up on a Thursday on Triple Crown Weeks. Jeremy Plonk, Jeff Siegel from First Bet and Express Bet. Jeff, it's Belmont Stakes Week. Some folks are watching this podcast on YouTube, across other social media channels. Some are watching it right inside of the first Belmont Stakes wager guide. So if you're flipping through the wager guide and you've got Jeff and I's handicapping, we're going to take you through 9 stakes races on the Saturday card at Belmont Park in this edition of the First Call podcast. Each week, we'll take you around the nation with all of our stakes races. So be sure to join us back after Belmont Stakes Week. But Jeff, the smoky skies in New York, no racing on Thursday at Belmont Park. I would imagine a decision on the weekend status will be made sometime on Friday. But right now, we are hoping, with fingers crossed, that this Belmont Stakes is a go for this weekend. The wildfire situation blowing from Canada into the Northeast is real. I don't live too far from Belmont Park, hours. It's real here. So we want the safety and the well-being of the horses to come first, obviously. But as handicappers and horse players, we are sure hoping this comes off without a hitch on Saturday.
I hope so, and we will be prepared because we've gone through these races. I love when they draw these races early in the week. Gives us plenty of time to do the research and look at all the angles, and I think we've done that for Saturday. So assuming that we do have racing on Saturday, I'm looking forward to it. So not only good gambling, but obviously high-quality racing. This looks like a summer preview of the Breeders' Cup, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw several, at least a few anyway, Breeders' Cup winners this weekend at Belmont Park.
You know, I'm not one for polls in horse racing. Like, it's not like college football and basketball that you and I really get into the polls there. But the number 1 and number 2 ranked horses in this week's NTRA poll are Cody's Wish and Elite Power, and they're on the undercard on Belmont Stakes Day. So we got the top 2, and they're not even in the main event. So a lot of marquee matchups that we will see on Saturday at Belmont. 13 race card gets underway at 11:20 a.m. Eastern for the first post time. Jeff's going to have to get up early on the West Coast. Breakfast at Belmont, if you will, to catch that first race on the card. Stakes races we have to look at in this podcast include 9 of them, all 9 stakes races on the 13 race card. We are going to preview in this podcast over the next 45 minutes or so. So it'll get underway sequentially with the True North in race number 3, the 5th race, the Poker, the Brooklyn for the marathon runners. Then we've got the Ogden Phipps in the Distaff division in race number 7, the Woody Stevens for the 3-year-old sprinters, the Japer, a fantastic edition of the Japer for the turf sprinters. Then we've got the Metropolitan Handicap, also known as the Met Mile. That one's got Cody's Wish in there. The Manhattan Stakes for the turfers, the prelude to the Belmont Stakes each year, the race before the big one. And then the final jewel in the Triple Crown, the 155th running of the Belmont Stakes, will be our 9th and final race that we preview. If you want to get more Belmont Stakes action, be sure to check out our Tuesday podcast that we did earlier this week. You can check out that podcast. It's official, where we previewed some of the Belmont Stakes. And also our pal Eddie Olchek has individual horse previews for Belmont Stakes main contenders. You can get that on YouTube and also at Express Bet and First Bet in their blog section. Jeff, if you're betting the races on Saturday at Belmont Park, you should be doing it with Express Bet and First Bet, because there's a $10 money back special offer on every single race on the card. All 13 races. A $10 money back special means that you get up to $10 back refunded if your win bet in those races finishes 2nd or 3rd. So a little bit of a safety net that you have when you're playing. And also, if you like to play some of the bigger wagers, the pick 4s, the pick 5s, we've got $20,000 in hit and splits when you bet with Express Bet and First Bet on Friday and Saturday at Belmont Park. And those hit and splits on the pick 4s and pick 5s just mean you get more money when you win. If you take down those wagers, you get your pari-mutuel winnings, and then you'll split some of that $20,000 over the various sequences in those bets. We've mentioned Friday and Saturday for the hit and split wagers. The Friday stakes card at Belmont Park is absolutely loaded. Again, fingers crossed we get that card in with the wildfire situation. But on Friday, we did our handicapping. On the Tuesday show, it's official. So if you want to look at 4 or 5 stakes races from that Friday card to get Jeff's opinions, and my opinions on those, be sure to go back and check out the It's Official podcast that we recorded on Tuesday. Those races were drawn earlier in the week, so we've already got our analysis locked and loaded for Friday. So let's get to Saturday, Mr. Siegel. Shuffle your papers around, and let's go to race number 3, 6.5 furlongs on Saturday. It's the True North, grade 2 here. These are the sprinters in Breeders' Cup Sprint Division. You're thinking 6 furlongs. This one at 6.5. It changes the dynamic just a bit, but we've got the main sprinter in the U.S., Elite Power, going for, what is it now, 7 wins in a row? He's got 6 in a row. Last time out in Saudi Arabia, Jeff, he was absolutely awesome.
Yeah, this is a very good colt. In fact, the winning streak started after he was beaten by Strobe, who's in this race. So a little bit of a revenge. I think Elite Power might be a little bit better now than he was then, although he was good then too, and so was Strobe. This is a clearly a Breeders' Cup Sprint type of race. Elite Power, of course, having won that race at Keeneland last November, was sent to Saudi Arabia. And visually, I mean, how impressive could you have been more than Elite Power was when he won that race in the third week of February?
Let's take a look back.
Done. Elite Power for Frankie Dettori down the outside. Gonaita's got a nice trail through as well. Ryuna Yukina is staying on. Out in the lead, it's Justin who has the advantage. But Elite Power sweeps down the outside of the 200. And Elite Power is moving clear and going to take the Riyadh Dirt Sprint by a widening margin. Frankie Dettori for Belmont in the Juddmonte colours that mean so much to this part of the world. Elite Power.
Wow. 6.5 furlongs in the True North, a half furlong longer than the race we saw in Saudi Arabia. And that plays to him, right? At 6 furlongs, maybe Strobe is a little more brilliant, but at 6.5, giving Elite Power some more track to work with, I'd have to think 6.5 leans to Elite Power over Strobe with the distance difference. And like you said, the form is just raging right now compared to when they met before.
Yeah, I mentioned I was disappointed that Elite Power wasn't given his chance in the Met Mile, but he's got another Belmont's got another Curlin who looks like a spitting image of Elite Power. I mean, they're the same type of horse, aren't they? And they're both absolutely outstanding. So Elite Power will take his turn early in the card, and eventually, I would love to see him stretch out and go a little farther. The last he's only he won going a mile at Churchill back last summer, and he's been sprinting ever since. I mean, why not keep him doing what he's been doing so well? But I think the way we saw that race at Saudi Arabia, he wasn't getting tired. I mean, he was stretching out pretty nicely, and eventually he might get a chance to go around 2 turns. But at 4 to 5 on the morning line, even though he's facing a horse who has beaten him in the past, I don't think Elite Power is going to make any mistakes here. Looks like he's been training very well, very easily at Saratoga, so he should be spot on in a race that I'm sure they have been pointing now for ever since he returned from the Middle East. So Elite Power over Strobe, no gamble there, but it's a great race to watch. 2 terrific racehorses squaring off in the True North.
You don't need me to tell you we live in strange times right now. All you got to do is look around, right? But when Bill Mott has the 2 fastest sprinters in America, Elite Power and Cody's Wish, will go in the Met Mile later, that's just not the norm. We expect Bill to have the best long turf horses in the U.S., and he's got the 2 best turf sprinters going. Let's go back to the schedule here on this week's edition of the First Call Podcast, see what's coming up next on the Belmont card for Saturday. They've got an allowance race in race number 4, so we skip ahead to the 5th race. The second stakes we'll look at is the Poker, grade 3, $200,000. And I'll tell you what, grade 3, $200,000 seems a little light for this guy, because the way Shea Pierre looked awesome at Keeneland, he should be running in the $1 million races from this point forward. Let's go back to watch him in the Maker's Mark Mile.
The leaders are past the quarter pole. Shea Pierre ranges up on the outside, takes a narrow lead from Dr. Zemph in second. 3 more lengths. Cabo Spirit is in third. Another 5 lengths back to Modern Games, up to the mark. Shea Pierre has the lead out to 5. 6 lengths in deep stretch. Modern Games and Up to the Mark are running on second and third. No catching. Shea Pierre, Flavian Pratt to win the Maker's Mark Mile. 1 minute, 33.46 seconds. That is a stakes record.
I don't know if we've seen a better singular performance in 2023 to this point. That might have been the race of the year. At that point, Jeff, it's been super live. Everything that ran behind him has come back to run really well. Shea Pierre for $200,000. They're getting like a guest fee for this horse at that price, I think, in this race. This isn't a bad field. You got Emmanuel, you got Dreams of Tomorrow, you got some other nice horses in here. But Shea Pierre looks like a legit Breeders' Cup Mile favorite from the United States. If he runs that kind of race the rest of the year, he is going to be very, very tough.
Can you remember the last time we saw a performance like that by an American-based turf miler? Now, I'm not talking about some horse coming over from Europe,
Right.
but I mean, of course, he originally was from Europe, of course.
Wise Dan, probably, right? I mean, you got to go back a ways. That's a decade back to
Yeah,
Wise Dan.
right. I mean, but the way he pulverized, you knew that was an incredible performance 2 seconds after they crossed the wire.
Yeah.
But oftentimes you need to verify it by seeing how the horses that he beat have come back. And you look at the field, and of course, Modern Games went back to his home base in England and won a Group 1 there.
Yep.
You saw what Up to the Mark did in his next start, just pulverized a top-class field of American-based runners at Churchill Downs. And then even a horse like Emmanuel, who was completely blown out of the water in this race, couldn't even keep up. He comes back and finishes third, beating a half length in a group race, a graded race at Pimlico on Preakness Day. So, I mean, it's not like the form hasn't held, not that it needed to. But Jay Pierre, who somehow managed to get himself beat at Tampa Bay last time out, but his two other U.S.-based runs were fantastic. No, to me, I mean, I don't know what the game plan is and how ambitious they're going to get other than try to point him for the Breeders' Cup. But this is like slumming for him. $200,000 grade 3 event. There's not a better turf miler in America, maybe even the world, quite frankly, based on his performance over Modern Games than Shea Pierre. And he's going to go about and he's even money. Yeah, I think maybe can I get that like right now? I'm like, is there any kind of future book that I can get even money on?
I would definitely take it. You got like the Baruch at Saratoga maybe in the summer. You've got the Keeneland prep race, the Keeneland Turf Mile in the fall, and then the Santa Anita for the Breeders' Cup. So you probably see him here and maybe once more, maybe twice more. So this horse is really good. He's lightly raced. He's only had the 4 starts in America since last year and 7 starts overall. 6 wins though. I mean, they haven't beat him from France to Keeneland Laurel. The one race at Tampa, just a complete anomaly there when he was his first start back in 11 months off when he came back and got beat that day. So Arnold Delacour's got himself a star. Flavian Pratt could have himself a huge Belmont Stakes day. If you're gambling on the poker stakes in race number 5, I've got to recommend the daily doubles and the multi-race bets. You got a short field with a heavy favorite. The exactas are not going to be attractive. Intra race, obviously a win bet's not going to be attractive, but let the math work for you. The Brooklyn's got a nice size field in the next race is 5 to 6. That's where we're going to go next. And so trying to hook up Shea Pierre with a daily double to race number 6, I think is probably the best gambling approach. As we go back to the schedule again, the Brooklyn next on the card, race number 6 at 1.5 miles on the main track. It's the same trip and distance as the Belmont Stakes. Grade 2, $250,000 in the pot here in a big field. And we've got some horses who've had some experience in this race. Jeff, 2 years ago, Lone Rock won this race by a city block. Came back and didn't defend the title last year, but at age 8, he's still punching hard in here. This is a good bunch for 1.5 miles. You don't expect to get a big field like this in U.S. dirt racing, but they were able to pull it off, and kudos to the racing office for that. What do you make of this year's Brooklyn, and where are we leaning?
Well, I ended up picking a fresh horse, again, this is my prejudice for Curlin and all that, but Bright Future to me is 1.5 miles horse begging to run 1.5 miles, and he's finally going to get his chance. He's 4 to 1. His middle distance form shows promise, and I just have to think he's going to be better at this distance than he was at the middle distance. Lightly raced. He was always supposed to be a good colt. He's been started and stopped on, but I'm looking forward to a breakout performance in this race, in a race in which the 1.5 mile type horses, they're solid, they're good, but they're not brilliant. So this gives Bright Future a chance to step into a new dimension, and I think he'll take full advantage of it. I'm not saying he's a single or anything like that, but he's my top pick in that race, Bright Future in the Brooklyn.
Weird placement in here. Last year's winner, Fearless, at the 1.5 mile trip of the Brooklyn, is running earlier in the card in the 6.5 furlong sprint race. I don't quite understand that one, but we don't have the defending champ back, but we do have the 2-3 finishers from last year being Warrant for Brad Cox, and then, of course, the Robertino Diodoro trained Lone Rock, who finished 3rd last year, when trying to defend his title. We've got some horses familiar with the experience, with the trip and for the surface. So I think it'll be a pretty solid betting race. I think there'll be some good options in there for people to take a look at. And again, if you're looking at pairing up Chez Pierre, let's say Chez Pierre is going to be a standout favorite. If you can get twice the price in the daily double that you think your horse will pay in the Brooklyn, then get ahead of the situation and bet the double Chez Pierre to your horse, because you might turn an $8 horse into a $16 horse by doing so. Check the probables in the daily doubles in race number 5 to race number 6 and look at what you think your horse. This is a good lesson in expected value and what you think your horse is going to pay. So, look at the field for the Brooklyn, figure out what price you think your horse is going to be, and then work backwards in those daily doubles. If you can double what you think that price is, I think it's a great bet, because I think it's better than a 50% chance that we will see a victory by Chez Pierre in the poker. So this is a way to build out value. And then you get to race number 6 and you don't even need to make a win bet at that point. You're sitting on the live daily double ticket. Now you can take the horse you like in the 6th race, key him on top and exactas, tries, supers, because you got a big field size, and you don't have to worry about the win bet because you took care of that the previous race. So it's a good way of stretching your budget out and maximizing your opinion. You'll win if the horse gets home first because you'll cash the daily double. And if you can add that second layer, third layer, fourth layer in the exotics, the exacta, the try, the super, then you can really blow a race out. So I think the 6 is an important race on the card from a handicapping standpoint where you can really make some money.
I want to backtrack real quick about Chez Pierre, because you said there was a better than 50% chance that he would win. I'd say like 99.9 he'll win. And I'll tell you why. Because this is a gelding, okay? And the sole purpose for the trainer here is to keep him going as long as he can, which means you're not up against any kind of time frame. You only run him when you know he's 100%. If he's not, you back off, because the idea is to have him running just as well as he's 10 as he is as 5. So he's not running unless he's 100%. And if he's 100%, nobody's beating him. So I have full confidence he's going to win.
Let's go next on the card to race number 7 at Belmont. It's the Ogden Phipps, first of the Grade 1 big time races on the main track for the day. $500,000 involved in here, and a couple rivals that we've been enjoying their throwdowns include Clairiere and Secret Oath. They were 1-2 most recently in an Apple Blossom at Oaklawn. Let's go back to Jim Byers' call of that one and see if we get another rematch between the two in the Phipps.
David Cabrera and Hot and Sultry lead the way to the upper stretch, but Secret Oath is closing right in, and then it's a 5-length break to Clairiere in the Stone Street colors on the inside as they straighten away at the top of the stretch, and Secret Oath goes on by Hot and Sultry. Secret Oath is drawing clear. Clairiere is 3 lengths back, but trying hard with her rally under Joel Rosario. Hot and Sultry to the inside, third, final 16. Secret Oath, here comes Clairiere. Secret Oath, Clairiere racing on the outside. Clairiere gets up.
Jeff, last year in the same race here in the Ogden Phipps, it was almost a carbon copy where Clairiere was just dogged and determined in running down Malathaat in an upset there. This is a good field. I don't think Secret Oath is as good as Malathaat was at this point last year. So Clairiere, with a repeat of that kind of performance, back on a track where she's won over the trip, this mile and a 16th, unique one-turn mile and a 16th. She's handled it before. All signs point to her big rally under Rosario again, right?
Yes, it does. And I'm just thinking, if you're Vegas and you had a prop bet, what would be the over and under of wins that Curlin is going to have on this day? I mean, Clairiere, yet another one. I've got Curlin winning every race we've handicapped so far. But
for people who have watched our show over the years, that's not out of the norm either.
No. I mean, it makes handicapping for me so easy. I'd say, oh, there's a Curlin. Okay, next race. But Clairiere, I mean, what I like about her is that she's gonna. I mean, she's already proven her worth not only at Belmont but in this particular race as well, beating a champion in Malathaat, and she's back in winning form, winning the Apple Blossom. She's been freshened since mid-April. I think that's good. Looks like she's been training really well at Churchill. Outside draw, there should be enough pace in the race for her to like sit back and maybe not drop all that far back, but at least somewhere within range. And then what I love about Clairiere is that not only does she have a good kick, but it's an extended kick, so you don't have to worry about moving too soon because she just keeps coming no matter what, Right. And I actually thought that Secret Oath. I mean, to me, I've always picked her like every time, And she got beat last time in a race that, quite frankly, I've run out of excuses for her because she got beat a neck. I actually thought she got the right ride for the first time in her life, but she still didn't get up or didn't win, didn't get by. So I'm a little bit softer on her than I used to be. And in terms of, I think Search Results has got a chance to run well here at a price because the pace situation might be comfortable for her. So it's a good race. It's a tough race. I mean, these horses have taken turns. But why not go with Clairiere, other than the fact that she's 6-5 and there's no gamble? But I do think she'll find a way to win again.
Played Hard upset the field when several of these matched up in that La Troyenne where Secret Oath couldn't quite get there. Search Results had the lead that day in between calls. I think may have gotten in front at one point, but ended up a close-up third. Throw a blanket over those three within 3/4 of a length. Yeah. They're all back in it again. Played Hard might be the pace of the race. The horse doesn't necessarily go to the lead every time, but first or second early. Johnny V probably puts Played Hard on the lead and takes him as far as they can in here. Could be the horse that holds on for second in the exacta. We could see that where Clairiere nails Played Hard on the wire, similar to knocking off Malafat last year. And a little easier horse to run down, perhaps Played Hard than Malafat, but still, there's nothing wrong with that resume for Played Hard. 11-15 in the exacta, coming off back-to-back wins. Has won 4 of the last 5. I mean, you get Johnny V riding at Belmont. If I had to play an exact in the race, I'd take Clairiere over Played Hard in there, and maybe we'll get a little bit of a better price on Played Hard than say Secret Oath and Search Results, just because of the connections. Phil Bauer involved there versus the Lucas and the Chad Brown angles for the others. Let's move our attention further along this Belmont Stakes card. Again, 13 races, 11:20 a.m. first post time coming up on Saturday at Belmont Park, weather and conditions permitting, of course. Race number 8 on the card is the Woody Stevens. We talk about the records in horse racing, Jeff. There's DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak in baseball, Wilt's 100-point game at the Hershey Park Arena back in the day. Records that we say will never be broken. Woody Stevens, 5 consecutive Belmont Stakes victories from 82 to 86. Mm-hmm. That's kind of one of those racing records I don't think anybody's going to touch anytime. I really do think that not only in our lifetime, but the next generation's lifetime. I mean, maybe it'll come along somewhere where racing's just not that competitive and the same barn and outfit wins every single thing. But 5 straight Belmonts, that is one of the most incredible records in all of racing.
No question about it. New Yorkers loved Woody. He actually sent horses to California more times than people remember. But he'd send them out here for races individually, and he'd always did well. So Californians had as much respect for Woody, almost as much as they had for Charlie Whittingham. And so to see him perform so well, I mean, to dominate the Belmont the way he did at the time when there weren't many horses who were passing the Belmont, if you know what I mean. It had more of a prestige to it at that time. I'm talking about when I was growing up in the 60s and the 70s, and it was first of all, it was a unique classic because there weren't a lot of other options to go for big money. Now, every state's got a $1 million race for you can run in. The urgency isn't there, but the Belmont, you had to give it your best shot to win it. And Woody did. And so, yes, this is I just don't know what about carding a race called the Woody Stevens at 7 furlongs, but again, it doesn't matter. It's get past that. And in handicapping this race, how I would handicap this race is the first thing I would do would be to find out, okay, where are the Curlins in here? And I actually found one, Fort Warren, who I would love to love, but I don't think he's good enough. So I went the next best thing. I found a colt who's out of a Curlin mare. So that's kind of cheating, but that's all right. And I came up with General Jim, and I watched some of his tapes, and I've gotten much more respect for General Jim than just reading the charts. I'll tell you that. Mm-hmm. This is a really, really good colt by Into Mischief and out of a Curlin mare. And I love this Pat Day Mile win, Jeremy, because he was entrenched in traffic behind horses, and he got bumped around something fierce that I don't think people realized he did. And then he finally angled out, made the lead, and really showed quality to beat up a good horse in Fort Bragg and earn a triple-digit buyer number, a career top, and has trained steadily since for Shug. And at 7-2, at 7 furlongs, which I think is going to be his perfect distance, I think General Jim, there's no reason for me to believe that he can't come back and win again.
Let's take a look at that Pat Day Mile from Churchill Downs. Travis Stone with the call.
Off the turn, Fort Bragg, General Jim, head-to-head, heading for the 8th pole. Frosted Departure, Lugan Knight is there. Echo again late on the scene, Gilmore down the center. 1 furlong to go. Fort Bragg in a pitched battle with General Jim. General Jim up for an narrow lead. Fort Bragg fights right back. Fort Bragg and General Jim. General Jim wears Fort Bragg down to get it. General Jim the winner. Fort Bragg was second.
Grade 1 race, 7 furlongs for the 3-year-old. So you get a crossroads of the sprinters and then the horses who tried to get down the Derby trail and couldn't get to the mile and 16th, mile and 8th, and onto the classic distances. You get horses like Victory Formation turning back in here. He won the Smarty Jones. He was second, third in the Bathhouse Row against Red Route 1 as the beaten favorite. My inclination in this race and historically is to take the horses who are more sprinters and not the horses who are making this their secondary prize. You know, they spent all year trying to build them up and build the stamina in them. Then things didn't work out. I don't know that you just automatically shift gears and get back to a top level 7 furlong horse. So General Jim, like you're talking about, is a horse who was not, sent along the Kentucky Derby Trail. He ran in the Swale, the Mucho Macho Man, the Pat Day Mile, 1-turn races. They're keeping him 1 turn. I think this is really a better set for a horse like that. And then you've got Arabian Lion, who is another one who we were talking like with Victory Formation, Jeff, who was sent the longer races, right? They wanted to get a Triple Crown horse out of Arabian Lion. He was awesome in winning the Sir Barton Stakes around 2 turns against lesser competition, but a great looking race on Preakness Day where Baffert said, maybe I should have ran him in the Preakness Stakes itself. What do you think turning back to 7 furlongs? I mean, they didn't want to go the 1.5 miles with Arabian Lion. I understand that. But 7 furlongs is also a drastic cutback for a horse like this. What do you make of him sprinting?
Well, he's only sprinted twice. First time out, he won a maiden. He did it nicely. And then he got beat by a pretty nice horse at Keeneland. Numbers were fast. And talking with Bob, he was kind of caught in the middle. He knew he wasn't a 1.5 mile horse.
Right.
But he also felt that he was doing so well that he wanted to, pick a good Grade 1 win up, and that's important for him, and it's important as a son of Justify. So, I think the idea here is to keep him fresh and see what he can do. I mean, this is a tough race. This is as good as it gets for 3-year-old sprinters this time of the year. Sometimes it doesn't come up that tough. This one is a salty race.
Right.
Arabian Line. There's so many others in here that look like they're. I mean, I don't know how good Federal Judge is. I mean, he's pretty darn good. Right. And really Fort Bragg, we saw what he was able to do, and a few others. So I think Arabian Lion's got a chance. I fear him because it's like the fear of the unknown. I never really thought he was that genuine, but man, his last 2 races were good. I mean, I thought his race in the Lexington was good. If you remember that race at the quarter pole, you would have bet $1 million that he was going to win.
Right.
And then he drifted out, and I don't know what happened there. But his last win in the Sir Barton, I mean, he looked like my first impression was he should have been in the Preakness if I knew he was going to be that good. So maybe he has gotten really good. I know he's trained well out here at Santa Anita. So at 4-1, I don't know if there's. I think that's probably what he should be, and I wouldn't be surprised if he won. But I'm just a General Jim fan. I mean, you look at his form, his dirt track 1-turn races since they were running him on grass. 4th in the Mucho Macho Man when he had no shot. Then he comes back and wins the Swale. Then he comes back and wins the Pat Day Mile. He is a prototype 1-turn horse, as most of the Into Mischiefs are. And I think between him and Arabian Lion and a few others in here, this is going to be a very, very competitive edition of the Woody Stephens.
I love the pace setup for him, though. He's the finisher in this race, and this is a general statement, no matter you're talking the Woody Stephens here specifically or any race around the country. The larger the field size in a sprint, generally the more contested the pace is going to be. There's a scramble involved. Then you take the factor that the inside horse, New York Thunder, is a speed horse, undefeated on the class rise. He's going to send like crazy. The outside horse, Drew's Gold, undefeated speedster on the class rise. You've got speed on the bookends, on the extremes of the field. The outside horse is going to go as fast as they can to start crossing over the field. The inside horse is going to go as fast as they can to avoid being sawed off against the rail. that just ratchets up the pace. When the inside and outside horse in a field both have early speed, you could almost expect them to just go barreling out of there. And in a big field size like this, and those two horses are a class in question, then you get, a hustling rider like Ricardo Santana on the rail horse. This race just looks like it is going to be an incinerator early. And that sets up nicely for General Jim in that case, because he is the closing one-turn horse. It could help the route horses that they just run their steady 23s and the rest come back to them. But in this particular case, give me a good closing sprinter with this kind of setup. It doesn't matter, like I say, if we're talking the 4th at Belterra today, or we're talking this race at Belmont Park on Saturday in the Woody Stevens. Speed inside, speed outside in a big field. Boy, that's what you want as a closer. It should be a delicious setup, I think, for General Jim or any other horse who tries to get that same kind of trip that he will.
Yeah, and speed, you talk about Harrodsburg and Federal Judge, they're not waiting around for anybody either. So
Right.
It's not just the top and the bottom, there's speed in the middle too. So yeah, this is going to be a very, and I've watched these races, the Met Mile and certainly and Woody Stevens. These races are often won by closers. I mean, just for the reasons you mentioned, right, Jeremy. We've seen some blowout wins in the Met because they go so fast, and horses sit back and just pulverize horses. You can see the same thing here. But I'm a big fan of General Jim, and I'm counting on him to run huge once again.
I'm with you, and I think he'll be a square price. I think he'll definitely be a square price in there. You're looking at somewhere around $10, I think, on him, and that would be more than fair to me. Let's look at the docket for our next race that we'll handicap here after the Woody Stevens. We'll go to the turf with the J Fruit. This race, 6 furlongs on the turf course. So a turf sprint, a little bit longer than we see in a lot of East Coast turf sprints that are at 5 and 5.5 furlongs. You get 6 furlongs at Belmont Park. You also get the Breeders' Cup turf sprint winner, Caravel. The filly's back against the boys. She doesn't care who she's running against. She's running through and by everybody of late with 4 straight wins for trainer Brad Cox. Caravel certainly going to be one of the horses to beat here, Jeff, in the Japer. 14 horses. We talk about the turf sprint, the scramble that goes with most turf sprints. 14 horse field. It's going to be about trip, but she's usually fast enough to negate any kind of trouble.
I mean, this race. I mean, you could spread in your rolling exotic plays and use 8 and still be wrong, because it's that kind of race. To try to isolate one horse to win this race is pretty bold, and I'm not going to try to do that. Well, I'm going to try to do it, but I'm for wagering purposes, this is definitely one race I'm going to spread. But I tried Big Invasion here. You look at his form, you wonder, is he really good enough to win this race? I loved his comeback win at Gulfstream when he went 5/8 and he made up a tremendous amount of ground. His last race, I mean, at Churchill, he really didn't have much shot. I mean, if you go back and watch the video, he was in traffic. He tried to rally. You could see the jock Rosario was going to say, I'm going to try to make one run here, even though it might be a little tough because there's some horses in front of me that maybe not be coming back to me, but I'm going to ride him like I know I have to. Sit, and make one run. Well, he did that. And at the upper stretch, it looked like he was just about to explode. And then all of a sudden, the door slammed on him and he steadied and the race was over. So, but that doesn't mean the same thing won't happen here because he's the light, he lacks tactical speed. But maybe, if they spread out a little bit, and he's going to have to get lucky. I know that and run a race of his life. And I probably want a little bit more than 6-1, but I'm going to put Big Invasion on top. Hopefully he has good racing luck and he steps up. And if he does that, he's got a chance. Otherwise, I mean, you can make a case for Casa Creed and certainly Caravel. These are the logical type horses, but these races are often won by horses that you least expected. I mean, even a horse like Midday Image, now in David Jacobson's barn. I mean, I've watched his last couple of races and he's a different horse. And this is a horse that was running 1 mile and 3/8 last year. Now he's a sprinter. So these things are all messed up. I mean, everything, but he's going in a different direction. So it's a spread race for me. But I know one thing. I'm going to have, the horse I liked on top, Big Invasion, on my ticket prominently, and hopefully he gets there.
Caravel's got speed, so anybody else with speed probably gets gutted by the favorite in here. If you're going to beat Caravel, the best way to do it's with a finisher, not with a horse of the same running style, because she's brilliantly fast, right? So I think she chews everybody else up. I think what you want is a horse from off the pace in here if you are playing for the upset. Big Invasion certainly fits that bill. I'm going to throw another horse out here, and I think it's going to be a big price, and I can't believe I'm saying this because it's Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt. But look for the 5 in here, Dr. Zemph. This is the horse who was a sprinter in Europe, running in the Phoenix, the Middle Park. These were the top elite sprint races in Europe. Since coming to the U.S., they went 7.5, a 2-turn race at Gulfstream. And then last time out in that aforementioned Maker's Mark Mile, this is the horse who set the pace and got ran down and got gutted and had the heart ripped out by Shea Pierre. And once Shea Pierre started going and this one was in the rearview mirror, they just like backed it up, right? Dr. Zemph turning back. This is a great post position. The 5-hole, big turf sprints like this. I like to find horses 3, 4, 5 in those kind of post positions. You don't want to be too far down inside. You don't want to be too far outside. It's a great post position, turning back in distance. And this horse is a sprinter. They tried to go long in the 2 starts this year. I think Dr. Zemph's going to be a number, and I think this horse has an interesting chance in here.
Yeah, he won a group sprint last year at Leopardstown, which is a left-handed track. If you've ever seen it, it's kind of like Belmont, And so I think that what he'll do is kind of sit somewhere in the middle, maybe in the upper third, and then make a run. But I watched his race in the Maker's Mile, and I got this impression, this thing like if I was the horse, what would I be thinking? I'm running, and then all of a sudden, Shea Pierre comes blowing past me, and you're saying, "What the hell is that?" Where did you come from? And just go blow him away, And so, but you're right. The back sprinting, this is what he wants to do. The connections. He is. He's absolutely Jeremy a horse you got to use. You got to throw him in for sure.
All right, let's move on now. Back to the main track, to the Metropolitan Handicap, also known as the Met Mile. It's race number 10 on the card. $1 million Met Mile here. 1/3 mile, of course, at Belmont. Used to be part of the Memorial Day lineup in New York. Then 2013, 2014, they moved to the undercard of the Belmont Stakes, and it's been here on Belmont Day. There's a special daily double from the Met Mile to the Belmont Stakes. So non-consecutive races 10 and 12. But again, special daily double wagering here, races 10 to 12. And if you're playing that double, that's one of our hit and splits. We talked about $20,000 in hit and split promotions with Express Bet and First Bet on Saturday. The Belmont or the Met Mile to Belmont double has a $2,000 hit and split added to it. So not only would you cash the winning daily double ticket, but you're going to get a little extra cheddar when you play it with First Bet and Express Bet. So if you are playing that special daily double, Met Mile to the Belmont Stakes, you definitely want to play that on your Express Bet or First Bet account, because you're going to make more money on this no matter where else you play in the world on the daily double. It's going to pay more here with Express Bet and First Bet. So you want to lock that wager in if it's one that you're looking at. But Jeff, in order to hit a daily double, you got to hit the first half of it. So how do we start things off here in the Met Mile? It's our Express Bet race of the week. You can get my analysis in the email newsletter each week with Express Bet. I'm going to try to beat Cody's Wish, not for any great reason, but I'm going to throw a little stat at you later. But I know he's the horse to beat.
Well, yeah, I tell you what, I have my opinions, but I want to hear yours, because if you're bold enough to try to beat Cody's Wish, I'm all ears, because I tried when I handicapped this race and I saw that he drew the rail. I said, maybe he might be vulnerable. I know he's going to be a short price,
right?
But so give me some help. I want to hear your reasoning, and then I'll tell you what I think.
All right, Met Mile. It's a 1/3 mile. It's the crossroads between brilliant speed and class, right? 4-year-olds at the peak of their career in racing have won this race 11 years in a row.
Wow.
4-year-olds. So I'm looking at, are there any 4-year-olds in this race who would be coming up to a peak career performance that have stamina, but also have some brilliance about them? There's 2 in here, and I think there's Zandon and White Abario. White Abario switching to Rick Dutrow after the kerfuffle with the licensing and the eligibility, if you will, of Safi Joseph horses running in New York. He's not banned from running in New York, but they have a understanding and agreement that he won't enter horses in New York while some of his situations with the horse deaths are being sorted out and investigated. So the horse moves to Rick Dutrow. Of course, he's coming off the 10-year suspension just a couple weeks ago. So this is his first step back into the major limelight. But the horse is working really well. White Abario, Florida Derby winner. Last time out, he showed the fastest, most brilliant race of his career, going short at Gulfstream. So we're mixing that brilliance with that former class and stamina. Grade 1 winner going long, who's fast enough to win in fast times. I think White Abarrio is part of this, and Zandon's in the same book for me. This horse is reunited with Flavien Prat. All of his best races were with Prat. He was a Grade 1 winner last year. He was a third in the Kentucky Derby, and they're looking at one-turn races with him. They gave him the prep in the Westchester, second off the layoff, a good form cycle. You get Prat and Brown again, and I don't think the horse was 3-5 in the Westchester. He'll be nowhere near 3-5 this time. So I think there are 2 4-year-olds that have a chance to make it 12 years in a row for 4-year-olds in the Met Mile. That's where I'm thinking maybe Cody's Wish, who's giving 4 to 7 pounds. It's not a ton of weight over a one-turn mile, but he has to give a little weight, and he's just short price. I get it, but you better get a price if you're going to beat him.
Let me ask you, though. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but how do you handle the fact that Zandon just got blitzed by Repo Rocks, who's in the same race here right alongside him? I mean, I don't know what has gotten into Repo Rocks other than, the fact that Jamie Ness took over, and then the results speak for themselves. Yeah. But I mean, is that something that you have to deal with, or are you just going to assume that the 4-year-old is going to bounce back and run his best race?
Well, yeah, some of it's form cycle, right? Repo Rocks has been running all through the winter, ran 5, 6, 7, 8 times through the winter. For Zandon, he was coming off a December layoff. The obvious goal for a horse like Zandon is not the Westchester, right? Mm-hmm. For Repo Rocks, that's the best race maybe of his career. He ran in the Carter and the Westchester. He's at his peak, or already at his peak for the season. I don't think when they had Repo Rocks, the thought was, let's get him for the Met Mile, right? They're in the Met Mile now because of the success they had in the last few.
Right.
For Zandon, I don't think there was anybody circling the calendar for the Westchester for anything other than this is his prep for the Met Mile. This is a Met Mile horse for us in his 4-year-old campaign. So that's where I'll try to true that up a little bit in terms of form cycle and the intention of the races. But yeah, I mean, look, if Repo Rocks runs that same race back, he might even beat Cody's Wish on the nose if they both run their best race. 109 Buyer. If you like the speed figures, no doubt about it. That 109, and that's not even the fastest he's run. He ran a 111 in the toboggan. So he's quick enough to run as fast as Cody's Wish has ever run. 112 is the top for Cody's Wish, and a lot of times in the low 100s. But I'm taking a shot in here. I think Cody's Wish is going to be clearly the horse to beat. He's got so much sentimentality behind him that he's probably an underlay every time he runs on the tote because people want to see him win. So I'm being a gambler here. I'm not really being, a fan. And the logic, you have to make a few leaps. But if you're going to beat a horse like this, you got to make a few leaps, I think.
Yeah, I see what you're coming from. My temptation was to try to beat him. And then I looked at, okay, well, what about him, Cody Wish at a mile? And I look over and I see 6 starts, 6 wins. Yeah. It's hard to find a fault there. I mean, the 126 he's carrying is he carried that when he won the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. And the only issue I have with him is that he doesn't like to be rushed early and can't be rushed early. Mm-hmm. And from the rail, I could see him getting into a kind of a bag of tricks there at the 3/8 bowl, trying to find room to go. And there are enough horses in this race that can take advantage of that if they give Cody Wish a rough trip. They're good enough to capitalize on it. Mm-hmm. And when you're talking about a short price, you don't want to have to worry about that. So while I would love to see Cody Wish win just because of everything involved, but I don't think there's going to be a gamble here for me on it. I mean, I've gambled on him before. I mean, when he won the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, he was 2-1, which in retrospect looks like a great price. And the other horse I wanted to like, and I don't want to split. I want to be honest here. I really love Dr. Shivel's win comeback. Mm-hmm. I know he only beat 3 horses, but he looked great to me. And this was the horse that actually could have, maybe even should have won the Breeders' Cup Sprint a couple of years back. So
don't remind me.
Right.
I loved him that day, and that was a horrible beat.
But as handicappers, we've all had mixed signals. I don't mind if it's good or bad, but I want it to be consistent. But when I have good and then bad, and then I have nowhere to go but guess, that bothers me. Because as much as I like Dr. Shivel's comeback win, and as much as I think he's never been the mile, but I think he's be a prototype miler. I watched his last workout, and you can watch it on xbtv.com. Check it out yourself on June 3rd when he worked 3 quarters from 13, and I didn't like it. I'm sorry. He broke off behind a maiden, a 4-year-old maiden, and tried to get him at the top of the stretch. Couldn't get by him. The maiden eased up at the wire. Dr. Schivel continued out the extra furlong to the 7/8 pole to complete the 6 furlong work, and he still couldn't get by him. So, I mean, I didn't want to see that. Right. I can't unsee it, though. You know what I'm saying? I've seen it. I know it. So now I'm soft on Dr. Schivel, and I don't mind going down at 10-1 if I like a horse, but now I don't know what to do. So I'm going to spread the race probably, but not too much, because I really do want Cody's Wish to win, and I would be happy to see him win. And if he's even money or 4-5, and I don't bet on him and he wins, I'm not going to care. I'm not going to miss anything. So. Right. And if he doesn't win, there's a few others in here I can throw in that maybe. Your point about Wide Barrio is well taken. Look at his 1-turn races, Jeremiah. Yeah. Just forget about the 2-turn races. And we know he's run far, but as a one turn, he's got, as best as I could see, 3 wins and a close third in the Cigar Mile. So maybe this is what he wants to do. And he's outside, so he can pick his spot. He can drop in whenever he wants to drop in and move whatever he wants to move.
Some heavy favorites in this part of the card, right? And we're looking at the pick 4s, the pick 5s, the pick 6. You got Caravel and Cody's Wish in back-to-back races. Where do you find a vulnerability in either one of those? If you're trying to play those multi-race tickets, you don't want to be laying on a couple back-to-back 3 to 5 shots, So it's one of those things where maybe you just take a chance. That's what gambling's all about sometimes. I'll take a chance against Cody's Wish in here, but it's not with a tremendous amount of confidence. You want to get a price. I wouldn't touch either one of those horses, White Barrio, Zandon, those 2 that I'm talking about, the 4-year-olds. You got to be in the 6-1 range in here in the spot, I think, to get interested in those 2. Let's go next on the schedule to the Manhattan Stakes. It's the $1 million turf feature on the card, 1.25 miles, just a little over a circuit around the turf course there at Belmont Park, $750,000 on the line. And Up to the Mark was up to the test at Churchill Downs in the counterpart to this race on the Kentucky Derby Day undercard. Let's go back and take a look at Larry Comas.
And Up to the Mark is making his move. It's a wide one, but he's closing in at the top of the stretch. Santine up top. Here comes Up to the Mark and Gerard Ortiz making their move on the far outside. They have taken over the lead with 1 furlong to run. From the back of the pack, Hong Kong Harry has moved up into second. Then it's Santine in third. But it is Up to the Mark, and he was up to the 10. Big time today. He won it by 4.
And here's our public service announcement. This was the horse Chez Pierre just blew away in that race at Keeneland, and how well he came back and ran there at Churchill. He looks like one of the top American turf horses in the game. The 1.25 miles should suit him just fine, I would think, here in the Manhattan.
If you look at, since this colt has been transferred to turf, and he was just another, not even that good of a horse, quite frankly, on dirt. But at Gulfstream, he makes his turf debut, wins by 4, comes from nowhere. Then he wins again. Then he catches Chez Pierre. And what happened in that race is he dropped back, which is what he wants to do. And then he tried to accelerate. And the first half of that race was running 47-3. And the second half of that race was running 45-4. Now, how the heck are you going to make up ground doing that? And he still was coming. I mean, he finished a neck behind Modern Games, for crying out loud, who came out of that race and won a Group 1. Yep. So now he comes back out of that race and just gallops in the Turf Classic. I mean, he rallied wide, came in on slow fractions, one going away, cruise control the final furlong, and now he's going 1.25 miles for the first time, which I think is even going to be a better distance for him. So a lightly raced 4-year-old colt has only had 9 starts, but only 4 on the grass, as far as I'm concerned. So as far as I'm concerned, he's won 3 out of 4 and 1 of the losses to Chez Pierre. How does he not beat this field? Again, now I know that there are a few others in here that you can make a case for. I mean, Ottoman Fleet is one of those Charlie Appleby horses who won Fort Marcy, looked good doing it, got a good number, all that. And yeah, he's good. But I think that Up to the Mark is extraordinary, and I think he wins again.
We got a big field size here, so when you have a heavy favorite and a large field size, good race to key on top in tries and supers. Try to get your prices underneath. Multi-race bets, again, we're looking at another situation where Up to the Mark, I think, 8 to 5 in the morning line is that's the deal. So Caravel, Up to the Mark, in between Cody's Wish. I mean, you got some shorties here. If you're going to play the pick 4s, pick 5, pick 6 at Belmont, you got to either try to find some upsets somewhere or pass if you're not looking at the pick 4 and pick 5. Of course, that hit and split helps you get a little bit more money and build some value back, so you could take some favorites. It's going to pay a little bit more, but you could be splitting it with a lot of people too if all these favorites come in. So you got to find your spots. Find your spots where you think that a horse may be vulnerable. I don't think this is one of them. I think Up to the Mark is clearly the horse to beat. And here you got 2 Applebee's, Ottoman Fleet, and the other one, Warren Point. You know that obviously Charlie Appleby has to be respected with everything. He sends over about a 50% trainer here in the U.S. Throughout his career when he ships a horse over. So respect there, but I think Up to the Mark will definitely be the horse to beat. And I think it's one that you can kind of count on. And maybe you hope people are afraid and play defensively in the pick 4 and pick 5 in this race. You know, Cody's Wish, they are likely to single. This horse, they may not be as likely to single because of the 2 Applebee's in there, right? So there might be a lot of people going 2 or 3 deep. And then the losing tickets pay the winning tickets. That's the way this pari-mutuel game works. So you may be more apt to take the favorite in this spot than some of the others in terms of thinking it won't kill my payoff as bad. And so I think there'll be a couple options here, and the field size playing into it as well, where people might be 2 or 3 deep on their ticket when they really should be singling, because I do think, like you do, that Up the Mark is the horse to beat. Next up is the Belmont Stakes, the 155th running of the final jewel in the Triple Crown. It will be race number 12 on the card just after 7 p.m. Eastern. Live broadcast on Fox. If you're watching on the network television, Fox now has the broadcast of the Belmont Stakes. The Triple Crown dominance for NBC is over. I believe 2006 might have been the last year that the Belmont was on ABC and not on NBC. So we're going back to multiple networks here, and we'll see how it turns out in terms of the ratings and the audience watching the race. But Jeff, all eyes here for, you know, racing fans has to be on Forte coming back. You know, this is a horse who won the Florida Derby, grounded out, beat Mage that day. And if you were a little bullish on Forte, you said, okay, he'll move forward off of this race. If you were negative on him, you said, well, he could barely beat Mage, who only had a maiden win on his record. Then, of course, Mage made that look awfully good in the Kentucky Derby. So where do we sit on Forte and his status for the Derby?
Here's the thing about Forte. I'm not disputing his quality, his talent, and maybe even his standing among the very best, if not the best, 3-year-old in America yet, even though he has not yet participated in a Triple Crown race until Saturday. I don't know about him. I mean, he's never been that great of a workhorse. He wasn't that great of a workhorse in this particular work, even though he went in 59-3. That horse on the inside of him, Verratti, I think he might have even run last in his last race, if I'm not mistaken. So he's not really working with anybody here. And I kind of expected for him to draw off. Now, maybe that wasn't the plan. Maybe he was told to stay even with that other horse. Meanwhile, the other horse is under a stranglehold along the rail. Yeah. So, I mean, and then galloping out, I thought
he pushes the nose in front of him even by the wire.
Right, and then by the time they hit the mile pole or into the clubhouse turn, the rail horse is in front by more than a length. So I thought Forte would show more energy, but maybe this is just him. I don't know. All I can tell you is that I won't be surprised if he wins, but I don't want to take him at 5-2 because I think maybe I wanted to see more here than I saw, especially for a horse that hasn't run in 2 months. Now, that doesn't mean that he's not good enough to win, doesn't mean that he's not tight enough to win, but it does mean to me that I think he's still vulnerable at a price. And I'm taking Forte, putting him here, a horse who's already, been a champion, won big races, all that. And then I'm trying to beat him with a horse who really hasn't proven himself that much yet either. But I know he's good right now, and that's Arcangelo. And he's going to be a better price for sure. A couple of days ago, you thought he might be as high as 10-1. Well, maybe he will be. I hope he is. But here's a colt, an Arrowgate colt, and out of a mare by Tapit. I don't know if I could like a colt bred to go a mile and a half better than that. And 4 starts, and every race he's run, his Bayard number is improved by double digits. And the way he's been training since his Peter Pan win shows me that he's got so much more power and energy in reserve that he hasn't had to show yet. And I think his last race was better than it looked because I think that colt he beat, Bishop's Bay, is a good colt. And I think you're going to see Arcangelo step forward again. The gamble for me is 10-1. Now, he can make money for me even if he doesn't win, as long as he runs second, my other pick. And I do think that Angel of Empire is going to run huge too. So those are the two that I'm going to. I mean, those two are going to get the bulk of my play. I might throw the other ones underneath a little bit, but I'm going to win. Pretty sure I'm going to win money if one of those two wins.
Angel of Empire, my top pick in the Belmont part of the first Belmont Stakes wager guide. You can check out my picks and analysis of the race. Jeff, Eddie Olczyk, our whole team of handicappers across the first family of racetracks with their Belmont Stakes picks as well. Be sure to check out more analysis from there. If you're not familiar with Arcangelo, one of the new shooters to the Triple Crown Trail, here's his win in the Peter Pan over the local track at the 1-turn mile and an eighth distance.
Arcangelo on the outside, 3/4, 113-1. And here is Arcangelo now to grab the lead from Bishop's Bay. Arcangelo, Bishop's Bay fighting back again on the inside as they move for the 16th pole. It is Bishop's Bay and Arcangelo. A terrific stretch duel here in the Peter Pan. Bishop's Bay has a head in front. Arcangelo counters on the outside. It's a photo finish. May have been Arcangelo, but a photo in the Peter Pan.
Hey, we had a thriller in the Preakness. We could come right back with that same kind of finish there. And if it's Arcangelo, Jeff's going to be smiling and waving tickets. And his mouse for his instead of tickets in these days, you wave your mouse when you got a big one.
Right.
Arcangelo should be a nice price. So be sure to check out all of our handicapping analysis in addition to what we have here in the podcast in that first Belmont Stakes wager guide. Also some videos on YouTube from Eddie Olczyk on all the different top contenders. Eddie is taking a price horse. I'll hint at that in the Belmont Stakes. Still waiting to see his final strategies on how he's going to play the race. But Eddie's leaning towards a price horse as well. Jeff's got a price horse involved in there. I think all three of us have a little bit of love in there for Angel of Empire, a trustworthy horse that we think is going to run a big one. So if you're looking for that horse who's probably going to be in the exacta, but maybe you don't like the win price and you want to go a different direction, I think Angel of Empire is the one we kind of trust. It's going to run his race. Whether it's good enough or not, we'll find out. But I think he'll run a good race on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, I just want to say one thing, and that is for a Belmont Stakes that does not have a Triple Crown at stake, to me, this is one of the most intriguing I've seen of that type of Belmont in years. Most of the time, it's kind of like the what's ever left over, and that whoever wins it's not that good. They're just going to win a race because someone has to win it.
Yeah.
But this race, even though there's no Triple Crown, you still have the possibilities of some top performances and colts that could eventually be top horses for sure. I mean, who's to say Forte won't bounce back? Angel of Empire was really getting good, did nothing really wrong in the Derby. I mean, I like Arcangelo. Does anybody know how good he might be? I don't know. Maybe he's really, really good. So, and we didn't even mention the Preakness winner. So that's going to be, a very, very, very interesting edition of the Breeders' Cup for the Belmont, I should say, and with Breeders' Cup implications down the road, even though there is no Triple Crown. So I'm looking forward to a great Belmont and a great day of racing at Belmont Park.
We hope you play it with First Bet and Express Bet. Again, take advantage of those $10 money back specials on win bets throughout all 13 races on the card. If your win bet finishes second or third, you get up to $10 refunded back into your account a couple of days later. So this is a good situation to take your shots with the win bets. And of course, those money back specials, $20,000 in additional hit and split cash outs for pick fours, pick fives, the special daily double wagers Friday and Saturday at Belmont. Go to the promotions page at expressbet.com, or if you're on the First Bet app, down at the bottom, click on the promotions there and get all the details on the promos, which races they are, how much money's added to them, and that sort of thing. Maximize your way to play. That's what it's all about. Not only can you pick winners and it's great for the ego, but when you get more money back for it, that also helps too in your enjoyment of the game. I want to remind you, great racing across the first family of racetracks. Also this weekend, racing at Laurel Park is expected to start up on Friday, opening day of their summer meet at Laurel Park. Gulfstream Park's got 3 turf stakes races on Saturday at Golden Gate Fields. They have the Albany Stakes on Saturday. Santa Anita's got a pair of graded stakes. Jeff will have that analysis for you at the First Bet and Express Bet websites. 2 graded stakes on Saturday, the Santa Margarita and the Honeymoon. And then we also have a little bit of action for you on Sunday in terms of the promos. If you're playing Hastings Park on Sunday up in Canada, 10 times Express Bet wager rewards points each Sunday during the Hastings Park meet. So a lot going on. Handicapping tournament players, $80 handicapping tournament feeder for Saturday's big tournament at Belmont Park. So on Friday, you can play for $80. Try to win your way into the $1,500 Belmont Stakes Challenge being held on Saturday. So if the high roller bankroll tournaments for you are a little steep at $1,500 on Saturday, totally understand that. Take your shot for $80 on Friday. And if you qualify and get that free berth into the Saturday tournament, you'll be playing with $1,500 of our money and not yours. So it's Jeff's money, not mine. I don't.
Yeah, sure.
Jeff will be putting his money. So, on behalf of everybody with First and my partner, Jeff Siegel, good luck in the Belmont Stakes. We hope to see you back on First Call each and every Friday of the racing season. And to recap Belmont Stakes 155, we'll be back with you on Tuesday with the It's Official podcast. You can catch that on YouTube and everywhere where you get all your great content with First and Express Bet. Good luck, everybody. Talk to you later.